Breezies are a group of enchanting pixies who ride the winds of Equestria in large swarms. Carrying pollen, their home is a secluded hollow that can be reached by only traveling through a magical portal. The Breezies speak their own quite bizarre language. They understand pony talk, but don't expect them to speak it. Breezies do what they want, when they want, and how they want it. Okay.
That explanation was from the Elements of Harmony Volume 2 guidebook. And it's a pretty bad way of explaining it, so I'll just do it myself. So, who are the Breezies, and why do they look like that? Well, I can't quite answer the second, as, creatures look how they look. Don't ask me what a chambered nautilus looks like, I'm not a marine biologist. But I think Breezies are one of the most interesting species in the show. They've only actually showed up once and been mentioned in one other episode. They've always been fascinating to me because of the lack of screen time that they get in the show compared to all the other creatures in FIM. Oh, and speaking of FIM, I know Breezies showed up in MLP G3, but I am not going to talk about those Breezies as I have absolutely no knowledge of anything before G4. But G4 knowledge, now you can get me talking about it. I even thought about writing a comedy fanfic about the It Ain't Easy Being Breezy episode, but I got bored. So I just want to quickly go over the history of the Breezies and what they do, are, and some of their lore. Let's get into it. So the first appearance of the Breezies in G4 happened in an episode called It Ain't Easy Being Breezy, where the plot of it is that the Breezies are migrating back to their homeland and have to take a detour through Ponyville, where plenty of quiet observers and helpers are ready to make their travel through an easier experience. But soon, Spike bounces his giddy little self on a tree branch while trying to see the Breezies, leading to a leaf flowing into the current and messing up the trajectory of all of the Breezies. So after Spike the Unbrave and Unglorious accidentally injured a bunch of small animals, Fluttershy decides to take the Breezies in for a moment so that they can rest up. After about an hour or so, Twilight and AJ come back to ask if the Breezies are ready to go home now. But Fluttershy gave off too much mommy vibes for the Breezies to handle, so they want to stay at her cottage forever. Well, that is until this Sweet over here sees through her and tries to convince every other Breezy they need to go back home, especially since the portal to their cave world will be closing soon.
Right, I'll tell you what, you fat little go and fuck yourself. Go and fucking crawl in the dirty, dank little hole where you fucking come from, you dirty, dragon-eating little fucking spastic.
What did he say?
I'd rather not say.
But for some reason, the Breezies would rather never see their family or friends again just to be mommied by Fluttershy. And I know there's probably some bronies out there who fully relate to this. So after some more pampering on Fluttershy's part, Seabreeze decides to dip out of there himself, and it obviously doesn't go well because he's immediately attacked by bees. This is the first time we've seen bees, and we're 4 seasons in. But Fluttershy notices that Seabreeze is gone, and so she tries to go save him by literally trying to seduce the bees. The vibes of this episode are kind of off, man. But she just has to be stern with them.
Right, I'll tell you what, you fat little
Anyways, season storyline important thing, then the main 6 turn into Breezies and take them back to their homeland for the Wait, what?! The main 6 turn themselves into Breezies? How?!
I've been studying an old spellbook from the
Toy requirements at Hasbro. But yeah, the main 6 make it out all fine and dandy in the end, and that's basically all you need to know about that episode. The next mention was in episode 3 as a crowd, where Fluttershy gets to go on a trip to the Equestrian Society for the Preservation of Rare Creatures to observe the Breezies off-screen. Then they show up for a split second in the season 4 finale after the main 6 makes everyone taste the rainbow, and they also appear in the last problem surrounding Fluttershy and her final shots. But other than that, they never showed up in the series again. I'd expect to see, one Breezy at the School of Friendship, but literally never again. Anyways, they did sometimes show up in the IDW comics, and they were mentioned to have a song in the chapter book Rarity and the Curious Case of Charity called Breezy in the Wind. That would be like calling a song Human Walking Around. They also had cards in the MLP card decks they put out, and for some reason there's just some random Breezy in this season 4 poster. Like, everything here is related to the finale, but for some reason, there's just this random Breezy showing off its iridescent wings. Oh, and how could I forget the toys? Yes, they did also show up in toys. So that's basically all the appearances that I know of. So let's talk about their... So, to give it to you straight, the Breezies are weak as shit. They need breeze in the wind to even go through the air. You know, hence the name Breezies. They're basically just gliders that would be completely stranded on a windy or still day. But the breeze does help them in some ways, like giving them magic to protect their pollen that they carry. They are for real like Goldilocks when it comes to the environment. Like, what did they do to survive in Equestria before they had the wings of ponies to help them? Did they just die? Is that why they're all snuggled up in a mountain area where small amounts of wind travel through? Because when they tried to live in regular areas before, if the winds were too extreme, it would just kill entire villages of Breezies?
Because
wind
killed my grandma, okay? Now leave me alone.
Speaking of that mountain area, let's talk about that. In this mountain area, you can literally see the sky. It seems like the optimal place for Breezies to live, with the subtle wind of the waterfall's river and the indention of the mountain making a current. This seems like it would be a great place for the Breezies to settle down at, which is probably the reason they did. Speaking of which, let's talk about how they live. It seems that Breezies that aren't of high regard live in these extending glowing mushroom homes, while those of high regard, like Seabreeze, get to live in these regular structures that literally just look like the castles of Canterlot if they were more boring and less gold. Also, for some reason, their water is like orange and purple. I don't know what kind of rainbows they're cooking with the Breezies, but I want a taste of that water.
Someone cooked here.
To move on, the reason that the Breezies were migrating through Ponyville was to transfer pollen back to their home, and as mentioned earlier, they need a good breeze to give them the magic to protect their pollen, so that they can get back to the portal of their home before it closes. And Fluttershy does describe it as a portal,
2 days to get that pollen back before the portal to their home closes.
which makes me think that the Breezies might be living in another world entirely. You know, a real Equestria Girls situation. They might have just learned how to tap into portal magic and found a type of pollen that helps flourish their home dimension in our dimension. I mean, the sky is a very unnatural gradient for Equestria, and there are Breezy-sized mountains, or those might just be very small hills. Everything is naturally different in size, including the trees. But it looks like they're living in small mushrooms that are the same size of regular mushrooms here. But if that's the case, then why are they mountains such a different size? And if that's the case, then ramble, 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 and then ramble, ramble. Because ramble, 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 ramble. Huh? What's that? Yeah? Oh! Yeah, it's probably just for toys.
New year, new me.